we are starting the recording now. So thank you very much, and take it away.
I don't know, Jordan, do we rock, paper, scissors? Who goes first? Like, do you want to
Either
kick it off?
way.
I'll
Yeah.
go ahead and kick off. But hey, everyone, I'm Cara Clanton Pope. I am actually kind of recently a CRM analytics program manager at Sercante, formerly a solutions architect at Salesforce who focused on Pardot and analytics. Been excited to be here. And Jordan, I'll kick it over to you.
Hi, I'm Jordan Krizman. Actually, recently just became a freelancer, but I have many years working with Salesforce and Pardot as an in-house marketer, along with being a consultant over the past 3 years. I've worked with many different marketing automation platforms. I became an accidental admin, like a lot of people, and I've been using the platform every day since. I've seen, many different scenarios and business use cases, and just happy to be here, and hopefully I can provide some good information.
Awesome. So I probably should say I know everybody's like chatting in like where they're from. I'm from Atlanta. I'm gonna say y'all a million and one times. I will do my best to keep that at a minimum as I can. But I'll kick off. There's two main areas I'm gonna show, and then I'll kick it over to Jordan. And I'm a big demoer. I don't know about anybody else, but for me to learn, I need to get my hands on it. And so hopefully that's okay. And show you all some things that are important to be mindful of when you're thinking about this reporting section. So the main ones being analytics and engagement history. Now, I'm sure y'all can tell just from a little bit of that I've discussed, analytics is like a passion project for me. It is one of those things when I came in with Pardot, they released it and nobody wanted to touch it. It was a very scary thing. So with B2BMA, it's kind of one of those, again, fell into it, but fell in love. And so I want to show you just, again, a few of those things. And I'll call out things that you should be mindful of as we're going through that when it comes to the exam. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And like I said, y'all forgive me. I have a very needy cat who has to sit on my desk while I present, which is, just it's a whole thing. So I'm going to be demoing, obviously, most of these things, especially when we think about it in terms of B2BMA, are going to be in Salesforce already. But even with engagement history, right, a lot of that's going to be a part with the lightning object. So you'll notice, obviously, we're going to be in lightning. So biggest thing, we're going to start with thinking about the exam. One of the things that comes up the most with analytics, right? There's two sections mainly with that 11% that you're going to want to focus on. B2B marketing analytics is a big piece, engagement history. Then you'll have a little bit of some other basic reports, teensy tiny bit of Einstein. There's like a few things that like I'll touch on, but biggest thing, let's start with analytics and B2BMA first. Now, the big thing with that a lot of times you get is simple setup questions. Now, I know that sounds silly, but it's, as a consultant, it's more than just like configuration. You want to think about what are some of these considerations that you need to have when you're actually going and setting it up. And y'all, it's really, really simple. There's literally three things. And I have a trailhead I'll send afterwards that's really quick if you want to do it. There's also videos. I did a video a long time ago called Demystifying like the setup of B2BMA that I'm happy to share as well, that walks through, but it's very, very simple. But there's three things you have to think through. So one is giving out permission sets, licenses, and permission sets. So I want to talk about that first. So one of the things being, okay, when I need to enable B2B marketing analytics, who do I give that out to? Who do I give that access to? And again, that's the piece with the consultant mindset that you want to think of like, who should be getting these licenses? Who should I be giving it to first? So like I said, one of the biggest ones that we want to start with is making sure you give out the correct B2B license. And you always want to give it to your connector user first. If you don't do it there, that data won't pull up. You might have errors. So you want to make sure you're always doing it to that individual first. Then give it out to whoever is setting up. Now, potentially that's going to be the person who's getting in and using it as well. But for instance, here, if I come in here and do my B2B integration user, now, I heard this phrase a long time ago, and it makes so much sense to me that I'm going to say it for you all, but your permission set license is kind of like a passport that gives you access to go and do things, right? So if you get into your permission set license, click edit assignment, make sure you give out that B2BMA, and then your permission set, horrible naming conventions, but once you give that out, then you go to permission set. The permission set is like the visa. How much access do you have? Now, we could go in a whole debate about CRM analytics and like the different permission sets you can do with that and how much access you have. You won't need any of that on the exam, right? But that's just kind of the why as to why you have to give out both the license and a permission set. So if there's questions asking about what are required to be able to get into B2BMA specifically, that's one thing you want to keep in mind. Then it's turning on analytics. Again, very simple. But the thing we want to keep in mind when we're actually turning on analytics in the system, so the reason we want to do that is because that's where obviously it enables, right? But then we also want to make sure that when we say, hey, I'm going to enable analytics, that we have data sync and connections turns on. That gives us that ability to get Salesforce objects. So I'll give you a little like tidbit teaser here. If you're playing with B2BMA today, y'all, this is what gives you access to other objects too, all right? But again, that might be something that on the exam, like if we want to think about data sync connections, if that's not there, the why is that required? Again, we want to be able to have that connection and syncing between really between your Salesforce instance and the Analytics Studio. So that's step 3 again, or step 2, sorry. And then step 3 is actually just launching and enable the app. So from here, now that you've got the permission set and license, so it means you can pull up in your app launcher and click on Analytics Studio. We know data sync connections, meaning the system's running, it's up, ready to go in Analytics Studio. And then you'll notice there's a create button to the right. So easy. You're going to say create that app, and then you're going to find B2BMA. So what'll happen, and now that my system is finally loading, we're going to hit that create. And again, you'll notice an app there, and that'll allow us to, again, launch and actually run through the setup of B2BMA. So that setup piece, again, that comes up a lot. Another questions you might want to be cognizant of, it's like, what are you getting whenever you enable this? And mainly it would come down to like dashboards. So technically, you're actually going to see about 6 out-of-the-box dashboards. So there are 3 what we call straight Pardot dashboards, all right? So those are going to be things like your pipeline dashboard. Those are going to be your engagement dashboard, right? Those are also going to be your marketing manager. Those are super important for your Pardot data. And what you're seeing there a lot of times is surfacing Pardot insights, all right? Now, the other side, we call like optional, more is it configuration pieces to it, and why you see maybe there's some in mind that aren't, are a multi-touch attribution dashboard, which all that is your campaign influence, which is huge. But if you don't have campaign influence turned on, B2BMA can't see it, right? So configuration setup things you need before you can turn that on. Another great one, account-based marketing. Again, if there are some things that you're not utilizing or haven't turned on with account-based marketing, or if that's not a strategy you're using, you may not need that dashboard, right? And then my final fan favorite, most of those come with every pro edition. There's no really limitations, but the only other one that is for anybody advanced or have Einstein features is your behavior score dashboard. And again, another great dashboard, gives you tons of insights, but you have to have behavior score turned on to be able to utilize it. So I would say to cover, basically to look at and cover things for your consultant exam is to focus on how do I set that up, right? What's required? Again, making sure that I know what's coming out of the box. And that pretty much gets you very, very close with really the what you need for your for the exam. Now I'll say go through, y'all, and play with that. Again, get your hands dirty. If you have a pro edition, old school terminology, plus and above, you have the ability to get in there and play with B2BMA. Now, something else that tangentially touches all this, engagement history, another favorite of mine. So I want to come quickly talk about this. I'm going to hop back a few. Engagement history, I think, can be deceptive in what it is. A lot of times we hear engagement history, and you might think that there's a couple things that come to mind that maybe somebody else doesn't, right? Like for me, when I think engagement history, I automatically think engagement history dashboards. More often than not, a lot of people think of what's on the lead and contact record as almost like an activity list from Pardot, right? Truth is a suite of items. It's a lot of different things. So I'd say for the exam, that's things you want to be cognizant of. And so I want to quickly show you what those items are. So big ones that you want to be, again, aware of is when you look at your, let's do this campaign. When you're looking at campaigns, your engagement history, again, can be either the related list or what we call like the cards, metrics, fields like that are actually on the campaign object, right? Great insights for the marketer to like not have to go into Pardot to see all those. If you're looking at roll-up items, there's a lot that you can come in and play with. But a lot of people don't realize to get those on there, a lot of it's just drag and drop in a lightning builder. So you need an admin to help you enable a lot of these as well. So for example, here, if I wanted to be able to say, I want to edit this page and I want to drag and drop some of those details over here, I can. So those, and I'll show you what those are. Again, related lists. So I can see, hey, this is the email object, the list emails that I sent out. Here's any email templates, things like that. But as long as you enable those on the related list, you can drag and drop it over and have that show up on your, get on your campaign. Now, another big one, or again, what we call those cards, is that engagement history metric. So what that's going to do is show you a nice roll-up summary of all the assets on that campaign to know, like, okay, how many total emails were sent, how many forms were submitted, right? But you can also do it as a roll-up if you're doing hierarchy, which is really nice there as well. So it's something I always like to mention. And then the last one in this suite of items, or two last ones that I think are good to keep in mind while I'm on here, is your engagement history dashboard. Now, for the exam, things I would call out, and it's something important, is one, engagement history dashboard requires licenses and permission sets. So meaning if, and here, well, let me take back. And what's the reason why? Your engagement history is actually powered by B2BMA and Analytics Studio. So, and that's kind of like a, it's really powered by that Analytics Studio gathering of that data. So if you really want to make sure that if somebody needs to see that data, you're giving out both the view only permission set and license, and always do license first, right? But that's again something to be cognizant of with the exam. Now, something else that I think is, again, you want to be aware of when you're thinking about it in terms of the exam is with your engagement history dashboard, with those licenses, how many do we get, right? So growth, you get 5, plus there's 10, and advanced and premium, you get 20, okay? Something else, again, just to be cognizant of is if you're on the growth edition, again, you get those 5 licenses, but your engagement history sync only goes back 90 days or up to that 50 million rows of data. Most time in 90 days hits first on a growth edition. But if you're on plus, advanced, and premium, and you have B2BMA set up with the prospect and activities data set, which is basically after you turn on engagement history, gives you ability to tie that back to B2BMA, then it syncs up to 3 years. So those little things, again, nuanced, but good to keep in mind as you're going through. And the last engagement history, there's 2 things I want to show you with it, but the last like feature of engagement history is your custom report types. So you can actually build a custom report type that ties in. You can do multiple objects, but mainly most people do it with the campaign and then whatever object you're wanting to tie it to, right? Whether that's list emails, marketing links, whatever that is, and put it in a native Salesforce report. So huge. I mean, people ask that for years, but that's another, like I said, main feature. One thing I didn't mention that, again, I think it's cognizant of for your exam. When you are setting up engagement history dashboard, there's a toggle to turn on in your setup. And so I think, again, you don't have to turn this on for, and that's why it's a suite of items. For everything else, you don't actually have to flip this toggle. You have to have connected campaigns are really important. But then with this one, if you type in engagement history, again, just a quick toggle there. And with your custom report types that show up in Salesforce, and those native Salesforce report, you do have to create those report types first, right? We're turning on something new. We have to tell the system, hey, we now want to report on it. And so you do have to have an admin that helps you with that as well. So most of these features generally would need an admin permission to be able to turn on a lot of these things. And there's the engagement history. So quick turn on and flip. Like I said, toggle is very, very easy to see there. So with that being said, I'm going to pause for questions. There's a lot here to go over. So Kathy, great question. The campaign and engagement history dashboard. Can you show how you get there again? Can you only see that if you're using connected campaigns? Can you still use B2BMA without connected campaigns? So this is a great debate. So with engagement history, you are going to want to have connected campaigns. Now, the technical piece is what, so we're going to talk what is technical and what is best practice, right? Because we know those are two different things. So best practice, you're going to want to have connected campaigns, but that technically is not required with B2BMA. But your data, especially with prospect activities and looking at engagement history, all of that is such powerful data that you're missing so much that if you don't have that turned on, like I said, it's a pretty big miss. But with B2BMA, technically you don't need connected campaigns, but it is one of those, just you want to be, as a consultant, that's something you would want to absolutely recommend. Engagement history, where do you go to find that? Solid question. So there's a couple different places. And again, it depends on which one of those 4 main features are you trying to turn on, right? So now if you're trying to turn on engagement history dashboards, so there's really cool interactive dashboards that you can drop on the campaign, on the account. What you want to first do is come to your quick find, flip on that engagement history toggle there. Now that does take some time to run, so don't panic if you don't see it right away. It can take up to 24 hours to sync, okay? Then you want to go to the object, and you either can go right to it, edit the page. You can actually come into Object Manager as well and set that lightning page and drag and drop the engagement history on the campaign. It says engagement history dashboard beside it. Now for other features like the related list, you set that all up on the object first. And so I wanted to show you here. And so you can say, I want to make sure, so let's get the page layout first. So this is where, again, if I want to make sure I can see the, either like put those as field values, hey, here's how many lists, or trying to think of another good one, like unique email clicks. All of these are, that's all engagement history technically. That's one of that first like section. So I technically can drag and drop and put that wherever I want, right? But also related list gives me those like almost like object view drop downs of my Pardot objects. Hey, here's the marketing links, here's the landing pages, right? And you'll notice they're all there and you can drag and drop. Then on the lightning page, you just drag and drop the lightning component that says related list. Boom, there you go. Very easy. Engagement history metrics, you also just drag and drop. So the biggest thing is setting it up first in your object manager, and then making sure you put it on the page layouts, this section, then you're golden, good to go. Great question though, Kathy. I love that one. What else, y'all? There's a lot of information. Go play with this, because again, these are what I like, especially about B2BMA. Can't really break a whole lot by turning on B2BMA, right? It's not gonna like accidentally send an email to a client. So like you're to turning it on, like getting in play with it, it's very, very easy. So I'm gonna stop now because I've taken up so much time, and let Jordan hop in here to talk about the rest.
All right. Let me just bring up my screen here. All right, so here's a brief presentation. I definitely would love to have had a demo an org to demo for you, but I took some screenshots, so we should be good to go. But pretty much what I'm going to do is review the Pardot reporting that comes with it. Much different than B2BMA, not as customizable, but you can definitely get a lot of insights natively from the reporting that is found in Pardot. there will be, let's fast forward a little bit. Like Cara said, there's 10 questions. Some of the things they recommend is just, or some of the things that they're looking for on the test is, recommending that to see if you can recommend the technical setup requirements for reporting analytics. Another thing would be, to identify reporting methods to solve a given scenario. So they give you a scenario and you have to, figure out, okay, where's the best place to look to see that. And then in my opinion, a lot of times you're going to need to understand reporting definitions along with the pros and cons of each type of report. A lot of the reporting in Pardot has drawbacks, so you're going to need to know what those are. Even if it's not on the test, it's probably good to know just as a consultant. So real quick, just 3 points I'm going to touch upon is the prerequisites for some of this reporting, the reports that are contained in Pardot, and Cara did such a great job with engagement history, I can just kind of blow through that pretty quickly. So just like she had said, connected campaigns, some of the prerequisites to make this happen are connected campaigns. The only thing about that is that connected campaigns have a drawback in that they are first touch only. So it only, each prospect in Pardot can only be assigned to one campaign, whereas in Salesforce, you can have unlimited campaigns that are assigned to you. So there is a, while it is great that they have connected campaigns, there are some drawbacks that you should, be aware of. Additionally, much like she mentioned, you just need some of the permission sets like analytics only view. And yeah, I think you did a great job. Okay, so here are all the reports. If you look at the right-hand side, here's what you're going to see when you get into Pardot. Here are all the can reporting that they have. I'm going to focus on, for time's sake, I'm just going to focus on campaigns, the conversion, lifecycle, some of the email reporting, forms, and landing pages. So, if there's a lot of reporting capability. We can get into, there's a chat functionality, which is OLARC. You can see your Google AdWords campaigns in Pardot and see and tie that back to opportunities and revenue. There's many different things. There's video connectors. If you use certain video platforms like Wistia, you can report and see exactly which prospects in your database are watching your videos, along with the webinar connector, which you can also manage all of your webinars and see who's signing up, who's registered, who's attended, and pull up stats on that. So here's some screenshots that I just wanted to pull up. Let's start with the campaign reporting. So this is what you're going to see on the dashboard, and the top half is where you figure out like the ROI of all of your different campaigns. This one, okay, a lot of them, as you see on the bottom, the dots are at the 0% line, and that just means that the cost wasn't put in. But as you can see in the upper right, whenever you put in the cost of a campaign, it will spit out then the ROI. And the way the system figures it out is based on the opportunities that have been won. So if you spent $100 on a campaign and you have a one opportunity of that's worth $1,000, so you've done a 10x return on that campaign. But it's important to keep in mind that since it's each prospect can only have one campaign assigned to it, there might be instances in where one prospect is in multiple campaigns, and that will not affect the reporting. What I mean by that is, let's say they're a part of campaign A and a part of campaign B, and I'm sorry, let's make believe like in Salesforce they're a part of both campaigns, but in Pardot they're only a part of campaign A. So if they win, if the opportunity is assigned to the campaign which is not assigned to them in Pardot, then that will not track as a part of the ROI in Pardot. I hope that made sense. But and as you see in the bottom left, moving on to all the campaign reporting, what's good to know in this part is not all campaigns are created equal. What I mean by that is the most popular thing you're going to be looking at is this website tracking. That is the JavaScript code that is on your website, which tracks all of the activities, page views, clicks that prospects are doing on your website. There's also a campaign, if you look towards the bottom, called Created from Salesforce. So every Pardot requires that every lead or contact that's created in Salesforce has to be assigned a Pardot campaign. So what happens here is, let's say you create somebody in, create a lead in Salesforce first, and it doesn't exist in Pardot. So now that lead is going to sync back to Pardot and be assigned this campaign of created from Salesforce. So when you're looking at some of the statistics, let's say you're looking at, you know, visitors or revenue on the right-hand side, in this particular example, you're going to see a lot of revenue is coming from that. It's like 3.1 million in the bottom right. That's coming from that created from Salesforce Pardot campaign, and that's because all that tells you is that that person was created first in Salesforce. So it's, you know, it might be nice to know what the real first touch was. We might have to go into Salesforce to find out, but from this Pardot perspective, that's the campaign that's assigning it to. And then in terms of, like, let's say the website tracking campaign at the top, if you look all the way over to the right hand column that says revenue 425,000, came from that campaign, and that just means that prospects were first tagged by Pardot as they came onto your website. So there's many different ways where somebody can become that first touch, and that's the most important thing that you have to understand is it's only the first touch, and it, at least from Pardot's perspective, there can only be one first touch. Salesforce does have what's called campaign influence, where you can have multi-touch attribution and kind of see all the campaigns that the prospect, or in that case, the lead or the contact, touched to get to that opportunity, and to that one opportunity. So that's good. If you kind of want to reverse engineer what a successful opportunity looks like, you can go back and see, oh, they touched campaigns X, Y, and Z to get to that point. All right. And then actually, one more thing I just want to mention here is, you know, it's good to know, at least from a consultant perspective, as long as these numbers can be off. So it's really good to, you know, it's really good to know, like, let's say the ROI is not populated. So you have to know right away the ROI is not populated because you didn't put in the cost, things like that. So you have to sometimes be able to answer client questions, and I'm not so sure about the test itself, but you have to be able to, you know, sometimes look at these stats and understand that there might be some discrepancies, and be able to troubleshoot those. All right, and then this is, let's make believe you click into any of these. Let's say make believe you click into the, if you're looking at the bottom left, the marketing initiatives. So you'll get this screen, and it just gives you a drill down of the exact prospects that have been assigned this Pardot campaign. It'll tell you which emails have been sent out that are part of that campaign, and any landing pages as well, and all the stats associated with that. So every piece of, you know, any asset that you create, whether it be a landing page, a form, an email, they have to be assigned a Pardot campaign. And so even if there's some crossover, it'll only be in this bucket. So if you create, let's say in this example, the list email that says newsletter 3/20/23, so that has been assigned the marketing initiatives campaign, and that's where it's going to appear, even if technically there's another campaign in Salesforce that you might say is associated with this newsletter as well. Let me mute here. Are there any questions or anything like that at this point? No, okay. Moving along. So this is what's called a campaign cohort. Cohort just means you're comparing these two different things, prospects and opportunities. So again, we're still in that marketing initiatives campaign, and we're looking to see how many opportunities were created over time um, based on the prospects that are in that campaign. So you can see, you know, January 1st, that if you look on, well, there's a legend on the right that's cut off, but 2 opportunities were created 2 opportunities were created on January 1st, and at that point there were 20,000 prospects in this campaign. And again, you can see down at the bottom some more of those, more of a list view of those same statistics. Here's the Pardot conversion report. So, oh, I think it didn't carry over. Okay, fine. So I'll say what I have to say about the conversion report. It's not pictured here, but it's very important to define what a conversion is in Pardot's view. It's not when somebody goes from a lead to a contact like it is in Salesforce, but it's when somebody goes from being unknown by Pardot to being known. It can get a bit confusing, and that's why I was saying like it's important to understand the definitions, because what Pardot calls a conversion, Salesforce does not call a conversion. An example might be the most classic example: somebody is browsing on your site. That's the first time they've ever been on your site. They'll fill out a form, a demo request. Now they have gone from an unknown website visitor to a known visitor, and that would be called a conversion. So, whenever you use Pardot reports, you have to know what the drawbacks are of the stats that you're looking at, because it will track what it's supposed to track, but it's not perfect. Again, so this is a Pardot's lifecycle report. This kind of what this does is it tracks prospects through their journey. So if you look on the left-hand side, you'll see visitors, prospects, MQLs, SQLs, and won deals. Something to note about this is somebody can make it down through this funnel without being a part of the previous stage. What I mean by that is you could be a sales qualified lead. You could be one of those 6 people, but you were never technically a website visitor. Let's say you import a list has been imported, and then that person speaks to the sales team, and they're converted into contact and opportunity. So they'll be an SQL, and they were never a website visitor. So when I look at this report, it seems to me like every stat should be a subset of what's above it. So if I am an MQL, if I'm part of the 960 MQLs, I would assume that, or better example, if I'm part of the 6 SQLs, you would think that I'm a subset of the 960 marketing qualified leads above it. That's not always the case. So that's important to understand, because sometimes you will get the test probably just wants you to know the definitions, but sometimes as in consulting, you have to be able to answer these types of questions. But also understand that MQL definition that Pardot gives may not be the one that you have, or the SQL may not be the one that you have as well. Marketing qualified lead simply means they've been assigned somebody, a lead owner or a contact owner in Salesforce, which syncs back to Pardot. Sales qualified, per Pardot's definition, means that this person is on a contact role on an opportunity. So that would be considered sales qualified. So this can give you good insight, and it's important to know that. And if you look in the top left, you can drill down based on different timelines, the last 30 days, this quarter. But it's good to see just kind of overview of what's going on in your account. The stats are not always perfect, but it's a good overview. So you can see, you had a bunch of net new prospects, how many, you had this many opportunities over the past 30 days, and you had 19 new opportunities, and 12 out of those 19 have been won. Again, on the right-hand side, a lot of times people like to look at this. It's a velocity, so it's the speed at which you go from stage 1 to the end stage. Stage 1 being a visitor, the end stage being a won deal. In this case, it's 5.3 days. And again, depending on how your lead conversion process, that can determine these numbers. So if you see something like, in this example, 17.2 hours to go from SQL to won, that could be a sign to think about, well, what does my process look like? And that could be that, they're doing it too quickly, or, it could be any number of things, but it's important to just be able to look at this report, understand what you're seeing, and understand the drawbacks. So moving on to emails. here's what an email bounce report. This is a very common question I think that you're going to get from clients and potentially be on the exam. Just being able to see, you know, which out of every prospect that was sent email, whose emails got bounced, and that could be for any number of reasons. If you look in that middle column, it'll give you the bounce reason. It can be a soft bounce, a hard bounce. It could be the email doesn't exist. This can be very beneficial for the obvious reasons, when you think your emails are getting delivered and they're not. It can help you correct those mistakes. Here's a email report. So this is just a typical list email. In this example, this was a newsletter that was sent out. And you can see all the different statistics of the email at a glance on top. And then if you look on the left-hand column, you can see how many opens, the delivery rate, the bounces. And if you drill down into any of those hyperlinked blue statistics, you can drill down even further. And then on the right-hand side, you can see, just a graphical view of what's going on. And then in the bottom right, you can see which links have been clicked in the actual email. If you look on top, there's 4 different tabs on a typical email report. So it says report, click-through rate. I didn't show a click-through rate because this was a live account, so that would show which company it was. But you can see on that click-through rate report, it'll give you a display of the actual email, and then it'll show you in line how many clicks you got on specific hyperlinks within that email. Okay, but on this slide, so we're on the interaction tab, and this will just show you at a glance the exact what's the best word, behaviors of people who read your email. So if they glanced it, if they skimmed it, if they read it, it can just be useful to see how people are actually interacting with the emails that you send out. And then the last email report is this is actually the same report, it's just a different tab on that same report. Is email client. So if I've had clients that say, oh, it doesn't the email that we sent out doesn't render well on my phone. Well, there are actually so many different variations, because you not only have to account for the operating system, but you also have to account for the device. So there's literally thousands of combinations in making your email look good, and you can't necessarily optimize for all of them. But this report can, you can see at a glance if most people are using, Apple Mail versus Gmail versus Outlook. And so you can at least get in the neighborhood of formatting towards the most popular email clients. And then moving on to forms. So if we think about just all the different marketing assets that we have, forms and landing pages are 2 pretty important ones. And this will tell you when you create a form, it'll tell you things like views, conversions, submissions. And if you remember, conversions it's the same definition. What a conversion means is somebody went from being unknown to known, and they did it via this form that we're looking at. And it'll tell you all the individual people and all the various stats. Something that's pretty important to know is if your form is on your website, or if you're using form handlers. However, if you have a form on a landing page, let's say, so if you want to find out how many form submissions you got, you're actually going to go to the landing page report. I'm sure they're either going to ask you a question or maybe something related to that question. So it's important to think about, where is the form housed? If it's on here, you're going to look at it on the landing page report. The format is the same on a lot of the Pardot assets. That's why I'm not necessarily going to every single one, but like forms, landing pages, emails, a lot of them have like the same type of stats, similar stats, and then you can drill down the individual prospects who interacted with that marketing asset. We're not going to go through so much engagement history. This is like the setup that Cara was showing you. These are just some examples of what an engagement history dashboards look like on leads, contacts, accounts, opportunities. You can get some really good graphical info on what's going on. And again, and then lastly, if you just think about the test in general, just some of the tips that I have is just get a lot of sleep, drinks a lot of coffee, and then if you while you're taking the test, just use process of elimination. Like the questions can be very long, so it's just important that just mark out, just like taking any test, like the SATs or whatever. Just use the process of elimination. Get rid of anything that you know for sure is not the answer. And then my third tip would be, if you can, to take the specialist and the consultant exams close together because the information is still fresh. And that's pretty much it from my end.
So one thing, Jordan, I think would be awesome for us to tackle together, because I think this was actually the one I was supposed to do and not take over your engagement history. So forgive me. I
No,
think
no, 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 no.
talk
It's
about
fine. It's
campaign
fine. You
influence.
did a great job.
Well, I appreciate that, but let's talk about campaign influence together real quick. So I think this is
Yeah.
definitely something as a something that on the exam is really, really important to, because the whole point of the consultant exam is being able to recommend these different reports and know when should you use certain ones. So I'll kind of give you my quick spiel on campaign influence, and again, for me, why one of the more important things that you should showcase as a marketer. I will say it's only second in my heart to B2BMA. So let me go ahead and I'm going to pull up my screen one more time here. So when you are looking at campaign influence, let's talk setup again real quick. And then Jordan, again, stop me jumping here about like just any pieces too. But when you are setting up campaign influence, a lot of people don't realize that campaign influence is taking first touch on steroids. Like, we know marketing 101 is like great lead generation, bring people in. Love that. That's awesome. But I think we can also empathize as marketers that like we do so much past first touch, right? There's so much engagement that we as marketers should be getting credit for. And that's really all campaign influence is doing. So what you're seeing, like when you turn this on, and again, here's the kicker, is for anybody that has plus and above. Okay, so growth editions don't get these campaign influence models. Now you can have the standard just out of the box Salesforce model, which I'll show you here shortly. But if you have plus and above, you can have these out of the box models from Pardot. So all I'm going to do, like for influence, really is just two things. So one, turning it on, right? We're telling the system, hey, I now am using campaign influence. I now want to be able to report on it. But we're going to come to campaign influence settings. And there's actually two. Now, believe it or not, if you just turn the first one on, it actually hides it until you go back and refresh to turn on the additional. So campaign influence is a Salesforce thing, right? So I want to say that again. This is a Salesforce entity. So that's why if you just turn on campaign influence, it enables, and you have, when you go look at the opportunities, and there's a field on there that says the primary campaign influence, that lookup field, that's all the model is. That's all the out of the box Salesforce campaign is. Now, if you want those additional Pardot models, that's when you say, hey, I want to add those additional campaign influence models. Now, you can always just go spot check them, which is really great. Go down to model settings and see which one you have. Primary campaign source, that's the out of the box model one. Now, fun little trick, and again, I don't believe this is on the exam, but it's just something for you all that I want you to know, is like whatever's the default model is whenever you put a related list on like a view on your campaign, or really anywhere else where you're doing that campaign influence, that's what model is going to show up there and show you that history of the different campaigns based off that. Now, first, last, and even, it's very simple. It's based off campaign membership and are they a contact role on an opportunity. If it's the very first thing they engaged with, then that's just going to be first touch. And it gets 100% of that opportunity's value. You can't have more than one thing you first interacted with, right? It's only one. Your last touch, same idea. I can't have multiple last things I engage with. So really, so last thing, last modified date is really all it is. For whatever that last modified date of the campaign, it gets 100% of that opportunities view. And then everything in between is even distribution. And all it does is take the percentage and evenly divide it across all your campaigns. And then what you're doing is you're seeing different points of the funnel, right? What brought somebody in? What's helping me close deals? What's everything in between? And so it's really helpful for marketers to be able to get in and like see that what they're really touching, what they're really influencing. So again, Contact roles, huge. Campaign membership, right? And you can put these in BWMA. There's a whole campaign influence dashboard that's really awesome in BWMA. But Jordan, I want to hear like your 2 cents on like thinking through these reports, and want to hear your thoughts.
On just campaign influence in general?
Sure, why not?
Gotcha. So sure. I mean, I'm a bigger fan of the even distribution model. I think that first touch and last touch can sometimes be misleading because, as we all know, I mean, depending on what you're selling, if you have a product or a service that has a long process, and you're going to have multiple people involved in that decision, multiple people interacting with your assets, clicking on your website, clicking on emails, downloading whatever it is, white papers. So it's going to be hard to kind of pinpoint. It's going to be hard to, or it's unfair to give all the credit to the first touch, and it's unfair to give it to the last touch. So the reason I like the even model the best is just because it gives you that full view, and then you can kind of decide, and see out of all of your opportunities, you can kind of see trends that are happening, and see, which assets are creating to that one opportunity the most, or which actions that you're taking. So that's my personal opinion. But some companies
I love
are they're obsessed with first touch, so they'll only do they treat it like a lead source. So it's
it.
okay to do that, just as long as you know that that's all you're getting is that first touch.
Yeah, I think you're bringing up such a good point about knowing the data, right? If you, especially if you have with connected campaigns and you have that campaign member sync, anybody else see that connected status and like, wait, what is that? What does that mean? That can, a lot of times, that's going to be the source campaign for that prospect. We may or may not want that to be the first touch, right? If it's just website, that's not giving us a lot of information. So I actually have a lot of people do, like to your point, Jordan, is actually go into your auto association rules, and you can actually say, hey, I don't want campaign influence to match until they match as like a responded status as a campaign member, right? So you can get really creative, but I think you bring up such a good point of campaign influence can be a little skewed if you're not paying attention to where that data is coming from.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, but I've seen, I'm sure as you have, people do sometimes what they're going to do, and sometimes it can
Right.
be tough to convince them otherwise.
That's
So
right. Well, what else? What other questions, y'all? Any other questions that have come up? Very fast demoing for you all and go to slides, but those are the main like reporting areas. I think what's also nice to keep in mind just in general is like you have some pretty cool Salesforce reports out there, even just like standard reports. Again, going back to engagement history, you've got some pretty cool things that you can build out. And I think that's something with the exam to be in mind, that sometimes a Salesforce report works really well too. And you can put, Pardot data into that, or sorry, account engagement data into Salesforce. Hard habit to break.
yeah, I completely agree. I think that, Salesforce reporting is very robust, and if you just get that data in there, you can do a lot more than just the canned reporting that you have in Pardot.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Cool. Deborah Lee, I'll send you my email. I'll message you on LinkedIn.
all right, so where do we go from here?
Yeah,
No
Ben, what do we
questions.
do now? We got a few minutes left. No questions.
Hello. Sorry. So I was listening. This was great. This was a super detailed presentation. You guys covered a lot. Uh, Deborah Lee, I'm going to take the recording and I will post it to the event itself in Trailblazer community, and then I'm also email it out and we'll put up so you guys will have it. And then I'm going to also put it in. I'm going to provide a link. The Pardot Geeks blog has all of the recordings from the previous sessions. It will be added here. So where's the event? There it is. So bookmark that. That has all the previous recordings. This will be added to it soon. So yeah, that's really it. Thank you, Cara. Thank you, Jordan, for Cara. Which is it?
Oh, honestly, at this point, I'm answering to whatever, but it's Cara.
Okay, Cara. Okay. Thank you guys for doing this. Was super helpful, super detailed. Thank you for taking the time to prepare for this and present your expertise. It will be referenced for years to come. You will help many people pass their exams. If you have any questions for Cara or Jordan, feel free to reach out to them on LinkedIn. They're there. Yeah, thanks and thank you for joining. Thank you for participating. And there is one more session, at least one more session that is coming up. What date is it? I know that there's 2 more sessions, one that has not been scheduled yet, but there is a session on April 6th that is not this Thursday, but the following Thursday with Ebony Williams. She's gonna be covering Salesforce Engage. Go and RSVP for that if you have not yet. And then there's one more with Ali Capitelli, who's doing a session, possibly with Taylor Backus. I'm not sure yet, but so there's 2 more sessions, and they'll be added as we go. But thank you guys so much. This has been great. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me, Cara, Jordan, whomever. But thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Ben. Thanks, Cara.